Good afternoon. I'm going to provide you some preliminary information and an update on the circumstances here. Again, this is preliminary. As you can see, this is an active scene, and we are still gathering information. This is what we know as of right now. So we're here investigating and following up on an investigation from the heinous acts that occurred on Christmas morning, where the mother and her 13-year-old handicapped child were murdered inside of their home on Prevost. Our investigation brings us to this location. We set up surveillance, and we were able to confirm that our suspect was in fact hiding at this location, at which time we got a search warrant. The search warrant that we got allowed us to enter the building and access 2 apartments. Upon entering the building and announcing Detroit Police search warrant, the officers attempted to make access to one of the apartments, where they were greeted by Mr. McDonald, who was armed. A shot was fired, at which time the officers returned fire, striking Mr. McDonald, and he is deceased at the scene. A few things, additional information relative to this case. Mr. McDonald was at this residence with a handicapped citizen also in the apartment, and another subject that was in the location who was instrumental in providing us information to the whereabouts of Mr. McDonald. Again, certainly not the outcome we had hoped for, but the officers were courageous. The officers responding to the scene, following up on the investigation, they've worked tirelessly for 24 hours plus since this heinous act that occurred in our city. With that, I'll take any questions.
Can you tell us what information brought your officers here? Was it those 2 individuals that were inside the building that gave those tips, or how did you guys know?
I can't get into that right now. What I will tell you is very good police work. Certainly we had hoped for a more peaceful outcome. We wanted to bring some closure to the family, who, as you can imagine, is still struggling with what happened Christmas Day, losing their mom and this child who was also handicapped. And so a lot of police work went into this, working surveillance and really pulling a lot of information from various sources, brought us to this location. During that process, they were able to confirm that our subject was inside this location with the help of some information from people inside of the location, and at which time they got a search warrant. Our special response team responded, as you know, the best of the best, and executed that search warrant. And we have the outcome that we have right now. The homicide task force and the Michigan State Police will be handling the investigation into the shooting, and our findings will be turned over to the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office.
Can you talk, I know it's still early in this investigation, but can you talk about what can you tell us about the 2 people that he was with in this apartment?
Yeah, well, the only thing I can tell you is that they were known to him, they were known to him, and one of them knew that he was wanted, but was very concerned for his safety. So he was actually relieved that the police responded. And he didn't want this outcome, but he was relieved that the police responded.
Mr. McDonald was armed. Did the police forcefully enter the apartment?
They did. We executed a search warrant. We knocked, we announced, and we entered the door.
And at that point is when?
At which point he produced that weapon, and the officers fired.
He shot at one of your officers?
So that is preliminary right now. A shot was fired. What we're trying to determine right now, if he fired at the officer, or if just a shot was fired. We're looking into that right now. I don't want to say that that's absolutely the case. It's still wide open, but we're looking into that.
Chief, can you also confirm the relationship between Mr. McDonald and the 2 deceased?
Yeah, the 2 decedents. The 57-year-old was his wife, and the child was an adopted child of his wife. And she was a caregiver, and she's a person who loved children and loved giving back to the community, and she was passionate about helping that child. It's just a very tragic situation, and for her to meet this demise is just absolutely awful.
Do we have a motive as why he would go there on Christmas?
We don't. We can only speculate. The officers and the investigators have been working tirelessly on this case. They've got some theories that they're working and running down right now. We were hopeful with a peaceful resolution we'd be able to get the answer from him, but we didn't get there.
On Christmas night, you said he was a person of interest. Did he go from being a person of interest to being a suspect?
He went from being a person of interest to a suspect, yes. The officers continued to work various angles, and we were confident that he was at least one of the suspects.
Can you talk about, you know, just the past few days? I mean, this has been a tragedy, but you guys have really worked around the clock to try to.
You know, they have. And, you know, I say it and not in jest. I wish I could give the officers a break. I wish I could give the detectives a break. But unfortunately, we haven't been able to do that. They work nonstop. They take these cases very personal. The emotion on the officers' faces on Christmas Eve, or Christmas night, I'm sorry, you know, at this scene, you know, I even asked one of my commanders to call in peer support. I mean, these things weigh on officers, too. And they work around the clock, as you've indicated, to bring some justice to this family. And again, we wanted a peaceful resolution. You know, we were hopeful that he would come out. Special response team, as you know, they respond to these things, you know, a lot. And, you know, we always strive for a peaceful resolution. Unfortunately, you know, Mr. McDonald had other plans, and we find ourselves where we are right now.
And was he pronounced dead on the scene there?
He was, yes.
Did he leave town, or was he in this building the entire time?
So, you know, the detectives have all that information. This is all preliminary. I suspect that he has been in Detroit the whole time, and he's been held up here the whole time. They've put a lot of work into this case, surveillance, and some other stuff that I won't get into that helps us do our work with technology and other things, our real-time crime center. So it's been nonstop. Some of these detectives haven't slept. You know, when you're talking about a 14-year-old handicapped child and listening to them describe the scene, it's horrific. And, you know, to see a wheelchair and a dead child, you know, that's not easy on anybody. And so they are passionate about this work, and they did a very good job. I just wish we had a more peaceful resolution. But the officers are heroes. None of our officers are hurt. They courageously entered that building and tried to take that suspect into custody who had already killed 2 people, we suspect. And this is where we're at.
Have you spoken to the victim's family?
I have not. I have talked to a few of my officers, command officers, and but I'll make my way to do that.
Just one last question for you. The 2 people that he was with, do you foresee charges being filed against them for aiding and abetting?
You know, just preliminarily, I wouldn't say so. I don't think they were aiding and abetting. But we'll let the investigation weed that out. I just, based on what I've heard, there could be more. I don't want to say too much and hurt a case, but early indications are they were perhaps scared. And I'll leave that there.
Thank you so much, Chief.